Today we have what passes as news, but is so often not news. We have local stories that are blown all out of proportion as if they were national dramas. We have stories that are peripheral to the news. We have basically gossip packaged as news. The news seems to have died, particularly the network news and the so-called real news. Charles P. Pierce has been writing about this. He's got a book out titled Idiot America, How Stupidity Became a Virtue in the Land of the Free. He's also a staff writer for the Boston Globe magazine, contributing editor for Esquire, frequent contributor to the American Prospect and Slate, and his work has appeared in the New York Times Magazine, LA Times Magazine, The Nation, The Atlantic, Chicago Tribune, among others, and on NPR. Charles Pierce, welcome to the show.
Thom, it's great to be here.
Thank you. In the last chapter of your book, you talk about William L. Pierce. Any relation, by the way?
No. My family didn't get here till 1919, so I don't think we can take credit for him.
Okay. Well, you never know. I mean, maybe back before that. And in fact, he commented on James Madison, who actually is a relative of mine. And
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
congratulations, by the way.
Thank you. He spoke well of Mr. Madison, but he didn't speak so well of a few other people. And your point is that William Pierce, who was a delegate from Georgia to the Constitutional Convention, after the convention was over, Madison wrote up all the notes of what happened. He's considered the father of the Constitution. He spent 5 years studying national constitutions before the convention started. He kind of ran the thing, or didn't run it, but he kept track of it and ultimately assembled the Constitution. Pierce kept gossipy notes about how fat somebody was, how well they talked, how shy they might be, and it's fascinating stuff. But the point that you make in your chapter, Torture in New Hampshire, in your book, Idiot America, is that back in the day, Madison's notes were really what prevailed. The newspapers were talking about the substance of the Constitution, and that was the debate. And in fact, the Federalist Papers were written by Madison, and as well as Hamilton and to some extent John Jay. Whereas, had it been today, what would have led the news would have been Pierce's musings about how Ben Franklin didn't seem all that interested in politics, or so and so was the oddest shaped man he'd ever seen.
Yeah, it's interesting. I believe, of course, that there is a place for both. I just believe that you can't let the William Pierces drive the train, and that's where we get into trouble. Somebody asked me, oddly enough, Bill Walton, the basketball player, we ran into each other while I was working the book, and he asked me what the book was about, and I said it's about the consequences of believing nonsense. Now, you have as a theme for your program, the notion that democracy is not a spectator sport.
Yes.
Basically, that this country was not devised in any way to operate on an automatic pilot.
Right.
So one thing we can do is we can believe nonsense and act upon it, or we cannot believe nonsense and act upon it. But we can't believe nonsense, act upon it, and then divorce ourselves from the consequences. Right. And that's what I think we've been doing. And when you say that the entertainment value has taken over news, I think in to a large extent the kind of kabuki professional wrestling thing we have on TV has somehow become the face of television news, and I think that's just a very distressing development.
Yeah. Now, I worked in news when I was a kid. When I was a teenager, I started as a DJ. I did that for 3 years, and then by the time I was about 20, I started in news, and I did that mostly part time. 6 a.m. to noon every weekdays at WITL in Lansing, Michigan, and then I had a business that I ran in the afternoons. But I did news for 7 years. And at that radio station, which was locally and independently owned, 3 guys had started it, in fact, just a few years before. It was the number one station in town because it was the country western station. At that station, if I had a conversation, just a conversation, with any of the sales guys at WITL, I would have been fired as a newsman. I mean, that's how rigid
that's
the wall was.
That's where the wall was, exactly.
And now I'm talking about 1970, must have been about 1971 to 1978.
Yeah.
And Bill Clinton, when he signed the Telecommunications Act in 1996, basically tore down that wall. And as I recall, it was a year later that CBS announced that their news division, which had historically lost money, was now going to be under the aegis of the vice president of what do they call it? Entertainment programming. Do I have my recollections and my numbers right?
I think you're right. I think that the dynamic that produced what we have today, what you and I are talking about right now, though, really begins with the demolition of the Fairness Doctrine.
Right, which was Reagan in '87.
Which was Reagan in the courts, and a real push by and to their credit, the organized right in this country saw the potential of broadcasting without the fairness doctrine long before anyone else did.
Sure.
And they acted upon it. And there wasn't a counterweight on the left to their ability to hijack the airwaves until the internet. Really.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's no coincidence that the Limbaugh show started just a few months after the fairness doctrine was ended and rolled out on 54 stations nationwide in major markets with no advertisers. Now, to do that, and nobody has ever been able to unwind the money that started the program. And I'm not a big subscriber to huge conspiracy theories. And I want to just say for the record, I think that Rush Limbaugh is brilliant and talented, and I respect him as a broadcaster. I disagree with him politically on just about everything. But he has gained an audience in large part because he's a brilliant guy in general, and B, a brilliant broadcaster. But that said, the opportunity for somebody of equal brilliance on the left to step forward, in my opinion, did not happen in the 1980s, in '87, as Limbaugh's show did, in large part because there wasn't anybody willing to fund it for 2 years, which is about the period of time it takes for a show to catch an audience.
No, I agree with you, and you certainly know the economic dynamics of radio far better than I do. I think what we are doing here, and this is something that I treat a little bit with in the book, but it's something that's bothered me because I've been a working print journalist for 30 years now, and I respect what I do, and I honor my craft, and I understand that we are now in an age where my business is going through the biggest transformation since Gutenberg right now. Yeah. And the really tragic thing about it is even the people who think they know what's going to happen don't. But that having been said, we've developed a media culture in which we sell ideas as though they were products.
Yep.
So any idea that sells well must be true, whether it's nonsense or not.
Yeah,
and once we accept that as axiomatic, once, for example, journalists accept as axiomatic that perception is reality, we're lost. Because if the perception doesn't match the reality, it's the journalist's job to hammer the reality at people until the perception does. It's not the journalist's job to say, well, the perception is out there, so it must be true. That's not what we do.
Absolutely. In fact, I would say...
excuse me, let me just... I'm sorry, I just want to finish.
It.
But as performing artists, which is what too many of us have become, that's what we do.
Yeah. Well, I make no bones about it. This is not a news show. This is an opinion show. And I'm not trying to be a news person. I think, frankly, the only person out there right now who's actually doing news is Amy Goodman.
Right.
Everybody else, John Edwards is the most trusted man in America now, or Jon Stewart, rather. The most trusted man in America, John Edwards, definitely not.
He's not even the most trusted man in his living room.
Right, exactly. But Jon Stewart is, and God bless him for it, but he's not pretending to be anything other than a comedian.
Well, and that to me was a watershed moment in television news opinion, or entertainment opinion.
Yeah.
Is when he went on Crossfire and said, "I won't be your monkey."
Yep.
And broke down, the
he
template,
blew up that show.
The template shattered that.
Yep.
And not only did it kill Crossfire, thank the Lord, but the template just shattered that. And why people, who are closer to my business than his business, haven't taken that as gospel.
Yep.
You want me to say something, I won't say it if I don't believe it. I'm not going to come on here just to take a position.
Yeah, without naming the network or the person, and I don't want to do that. I don't want to personalize this, but I saw you recently on a network news show, and the person brought up a topic, and I don't even remember the topic now. I think it might have been Sarah Palin, or
no, it was Liz Cheney. It was David Schuster. It's okay. It doesn't matter. But it was Liz Cheney and the Berthas.
I didn't want to be picking on David, but the point is that it was about Liz Cheney and why is she such a power in the Republican Party? And your comment was she's a power because you guys in the media are making her a power because you keep paying attention to her. Nobody elected her to anything.
No,
and it was completely. I don't know if it was lost on him or he just, wasn't part of the narrative that he was following. But people don't get it, that Liz Cheney, she's nothing unless the media decides to make her something. And they're doing it. You're
exactly right. I mean, let's just to keep the thread of our conversation going, Rush Limbaugh is a leader. Why is he a leader? Because he worked at it.
Yeah.
Nobody anointed him.
Well, he's got 6 million people
He worked
listening
his not inconsiderable tail off
to
get where he is.
Yeah.
Liz Cheney is a leader because she can reliably go on television and say terrible things and give her father a set of skirts to hide behind. That's why she's a leader. That's the only reason. She has no following. She has no constituency. She's no power within the Republican. I mean, not like anyone has any power within the Republican Party now. And what I was trying to get by was, he asked me, why does somebody come on TV like this? Well, somebody comes on TV with a theory like this because in the past it's worked.
Yeah, and because TV invites them on. I mean, it's like David Schuster inviting folks on Meet the Press, saying, you will have an opportunity to frame the conversation the way you want it to be framed. And in the case of Mark Sanford, I thought that was just tragic. Charles Pierce, the author, Idiot America: How Stupidity Became a Virtue in the Land of the Free. His website, charlespierce.net. Charles, great book, great work. Keep it up. Thank you.
Thanks, Tom. Have a great day.
Good talking with you.